Hello folks, we're back with another marvelous video, and today we'll be talking about the new most hated character in House of the Dragon. While the adaptations of George R.R. Martin's work have had their fair share of maniacal, sometimes psychopathic villains like Joffrey Baratheon and Theon Greyjoy, Game of Thrones, one of the most negatively talked about characters in House of the Dragon isn't exactly like those guys. This guy started out with quite a charming appearance that slowly got better with time, but then derailed completely. You're right, we're talking about Ser Criston Cole of the Kingsguard. Fabian Frankel plays Criston Cole on the hit show House of the Dragon and has done a wonderful job so far of portraying the character in all its nuance. Initially, fans had a pretty optimistic view of him ever since he was introduced as a member of the Kingsguard as a young charming knight. His friendship and closeness with the heir to the Iron Throne, Rhaenyra Targaryen, only served to solidify that view at first. But, well, that didn't last long. Of course, those of you who have read the book all know that he doesn't get his happy ending after all, but if you haven't, gear up, because we're going to take you through the complete account of the rise and fall of Ser Criston Cole in the events of the Targaryen Civil War. A word of warning, this will contain some pretty major spoilers, so watch at your own risk. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Let's begin.
Dornish marches, Princess. I fought for a year as a foot soldier against the Dornish incursion.
Who is Criston Cole? Known in history as the Kingmaker, Ser Criston Cole is a knight belonging to House Cole, who served as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard and later Hand of the King to Aegon Targaryen II. Prior to this, he was a member of the Kingsguard under Viserys Targaryen I and also Rhaenyra Targaryen's sworn shield. He's described by Alicent Hightower to be of Dornish origin, as House Cole is a minor house of the Dornish Marches and serves House Dondarrion. Ser Criston's father served as a steward at Blackhaven. Well, not a lot is known about Criston's early life. It's believed that he had an adventurous youth. However, his standing was not high enough to have a formal betrothal to a lady, and thus he could have married a common-born woman if he had wished to before he took his vows as a knight of the Kingsguard. He is also said to have fought as a foot soldier for a year during border conflicts with Dorne. Sir Alan Dondarrion had knighted him after he took part in the raising of 2 watchtowers along the Boneway. When a tournament was held at Maidenpool to celebrate the ascension of King Viserys Targaryen I, Ser Criston had drawn considerable attention to himself by winning a melee, where he was successful in knocking the legendary sword Darksister out of the hands of Prince Daemon Targaryen, brother to the king. He had given the victor's laurel to the then 7-year-old princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, and had also won her favor when he had unhorsed Daemon Targaryen, as well as the twins Sir Arik and Eric Cargyle, who had belonged to the Kingsguard. However, he himself was later unhorsed by Lord Lyman Mallister. The young Princess Targaryen had then wanted the knight to be her sworn shield, a whim that her father, King Viserys Targaryen I, obliged. A year later, Ser Criston Cole was finally inducted into the Kingsguard, taking the place of Sir Ryam Redwine. Sworn Shield. Criston Cole's Kingsguard Induction. In House of the Dragon, Cole makes an early appearance in Season 1 when he competes in the Heirs Tournament. During his first round of jousting, he defeats a knight from House Tarly and then defeats Sir Boros and Borman Baratheon. His next opponent turns out to be none other than Prince Daemon Targaryen, who is widely known for being among the most formidable warriors in Westeros. Daemon and Criston battle it out and are almost tied, but Cole manages to unhorse Daemon. As a result of this, the Targaryen prince then demands a contest of weapons on foot. As Daemon unsheathes his legendary sword Darksister, which, by the way, belonged to Visenya Targaryen, Aegon the Conqueror's sister wife, Ser Criston gets ready with his flail. The two battled valiantly, and with a decisive blow, Cole was able to break apart Daemon's shield as the Targaryen prince swung at his opponent's breastplate. Following this, Daemon Targaryen kicked the young knight to the ground, but before he could celebrate his victory, Criston is able to rise up and knock the prince down, forcing him to yield. After emerging victorious, Ser Cole asks Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen for her favor, and she wishes him luck. Note that in the book, the princess is only 7 years of age at this time, but in the show, she's shown to be a teenager. After 6 months, at the insistence of the princess, Ser Criston Cole is named to the Kingsguard. This is mainly because Rhaenyra made a pretty convincing argument that he's the only one with actual battle experience among the potential candidates. When Prince Daemon Targaryen occupies the Targaryen stronghold at Dragonstone, Ser Criston travels with Otto Hightower, the hand of King Viserys Targaryen, and a detachment of soldiers. They aim to make the prince give up his occupation of the castle and return the dragon egg he had taken. Daemon jokingly calls him Ser Criston, and this has become a recurring gag, with fans of the show constantly referring to him by this name. Cole reminds the prince how he had defeated him in the Heirs tournament not long ago. While tensions are mounting and both parties have their swords drawn, Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen arrives just in time to make Daemon give up the dragon egg, prevent any bloodshed. Duty versus desire. Criston Cole's struggle with love. As we've seen in the events of House of the Dragon Season 1, King Viserys Targaryen I and his wife, Aemma Arryn, had only one child, Rhaenyra Targaryen, who was proclaimed heir to the Iron Throne. However, later, when Queen Aemma became pregnant, she gave birth to a boy but died in labor. The prince unfortunately passed away after a few days as well. Following this, Princess Rhaenyra's childhood friend and the daughter of Otto Hightower, Alicent Hightower, became the queen by marrying Viserys. She bore him his son, Aegon Targaryen II, and in honor of the young prince's second name day, the king organized a royal hunt in the Kingswood. Before their departure, King Viserys asks Criston Cole regarding the whereabouts of Princess Rhaenyra, but to no avail. However, later at the camp, Cole sees the princess storm out of a tent, mount her ride, and ride into the wild. As her sworn shield, he must ensure her safety, so he follows her. When he finally catches up with her, Rhaenyra tells him that her father was trying to engage her with Jason Lannister, which was a horrifying prospect to her eyes. Ser Criston jokingly said he would kill Jason, which the princess found amusing. Cole asks her to return to camp, but Rhaenyra wants to retire in the Kingswood, so they compromise and listen to her. Rhaenyra expresses an interest in his life and asks him if he was ever betrothed, to which Cole says that his station was never high enough to warrant a formal betrothal. He could have married a commoner, but he didn't. Rhaenyra says that she envies him for having a say in his life, since she might be the princess of Westeros, but she feels like she never has any real power. To this, Criston tells her that it was her choice that made him a member of the Kingsguard, which is the highest honor for anyone in his family and house. The two make a fire and sit by, and the knight once again asks the princess to return to camp since her father would likely be worried, but Rhaenyra still doesn't want to. She instead asks him if the people of Westeros will truly ever accept her as their queen, because since her father has a son now, her position as heir to the Iron Throne is under some dispute. Ser Criston says that the people have to accept her since she has been elected as the heir. A rustling in the bushes alerts them both as the knight draws his sword to protect the princess. A wild boar rushes out and tackles Criston to the ground and goes for Rhaenyra. However, Cole recovers and manages to injure the boar, who is then finished off by the princess, who stabs it over and over. The two then return to the camp with their kill, and this time a white hart approaches them. While Ser Criston draws his sword again, the princess stops him. After a while, the stag runs off. This scene in House of the Dragon is very important, since fans believe that the stag represents the gods, who gave their support to Rhaenyra as the rightful heir to the throne amidst a time when succession was in question. Finally, the duo returns to the camp and is welcomed by inquisitive stares from everyone around them. After this, when King Viserys proposes that Rhaenyra find a husband, Cole accompanies her on a tour to find potential suitors. When they come to Storm's End, the Baratheon stronghold, Rhaenyra is disinterested and rejects every suitor who is lined up for her hand. A fight breaks out between Willem Blackwood and Gerald Bracken, and the princess tells Cole she wants to leave. She also asks him to make sure their ship returns to King's Landing directly, even though they were supposed to have more stops for the tour. While sailing back to King's Landing, Rhaenyra ponders over whether her father would be upset with her. Cole playfully asks whether she means he would be upset over her rejecting every suitor or ending the tour early. A dragon's cry is heard overhead, and while everyone takes cover, Caraxes and Daemon Targaryen swoop down, rocking the ship dangerously. Criston checks on whether the princess is fine and insists on calling the maesters, but Rhaenyra refuses. Matters come to a head after this one night when Rhaenyra sneaks out of her room with Daemon, dressed as a commoner, and treats herself to a night out in town. She returns to her chambers where Criston is standing guard. A shocked Criston tries to check whether she's okay, and Rhaenyra, who's understandably understimulated after having spent time with Daemon, tries to playfully seduce him. She kisses him, stunning him, and then despite his half-hearted protests, she begins to undress him. Cole is shown to be caught between duty and desire as he stares at his white cloak and then finally takes it off. This is where Ser Criston Cole defies his duty and breaks his vows for the first time. First, being the key word here, not able to contain his desire for the princess, and also being unable to deny her. He finally gives in to his desires and has a steamy night with the princess. Well, this is the version shown in House of the Dragon. One account from the book mentions that Daemon Targaryen had groomed Rhaenyra into seducing the knight, but Cole had refused her advances. He's shown to be visibly uncomfortable the next morning as he enters the princess's chambers to hand her a summons for Queen Alicent Hightower. He's also quite nervous when he and some other members of the Kingsguard accompany Rhaenyra to her father's chambers. The rise of Criston Cole. The Kingmaker's battle with his conscience begins the moment he decides to be intimate with Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. He seems visibly guilty when he accompanies her to Driftmark to propose a marriage between the princess and Sir Laenor Velaryon, along with King Viserys and his new hand, Lionel Strong. On their way back to King's Landing, his guilt finally gets the better of him and he asks the princess to marry him. He wants it to be a marriage of love and not one of duty, which is being forced onto Rhaenyra. Whether he proposes out of guilt for breaking his Kingsguard vow or because of his sincere love for the princess is not known, but it can be assumed that he had expected a positive answer from Rhaenyra. The princess had, on numerous occasions, told him about how much she disliked her position and her duties, and so he believed that this elopement would save her from her position as well as absolve him of his crime of breaking his Kingsguard vow. And this, my friends, is where things go south. Rhaenyra refuses the proposal, saying that she can't run away from her duties even if she doesn't like them. However, she does tell him that she and Laenor have come to a mutual understanding, which is that they would go their separate ways after having fulfilled their duties. It is very clearly shown in House of the Dragon that Laenor Velaryon favored men over women, which could be the reason why he made this pact with the princess. Criston was shocked and enraged at this proposal and accused Rhaenyra of wanting to make him her personal whore. To his mind, he had given up on his honor and sullied his white cloak all for the princess, who would not even give up her position as heir to the Iron Throne for his sake. In his mind, he had no way of restoring his honor. He starts to distance himself from the princess from this point onward because of guilt and shame, but also because of a pretty wounded ego. When they return to King's Landing, Cole is summoned by Alicent Hightower, who intends to interrogate him about an incident where Rhaenyra had compromised her morals. While the queen was talking about whether the princess had been intimate with Daemon Targaryen, Cole doesn't understand this and instead believes that Alicent had come to know about his affair with Rhaenyra. He sees no way other than dying to restore his honor and requests from the queen a merciful death. However, Alicent dismisses him, thanking him for being honest. During the welcoming feast for the marriage of Rhaenyra with Laenor, Cole is seen visibly agitated. He is approached by Sir Joffrey Lonmouth, who hints that he's Laenor's lover and that he knows about Criston's tryst with Rhaenyra. In jolly spirits, Joffrey says that as they are knights and sworn to protect the royals, both of them should keep the secret of their respective lovers and guard them forever. This pushes Criston Cole to the edge, and he attacks Joffrey, not caring about anyone else. When Laenor tries to pull him off, he punches the Valyrian heir before proceeding to beat Joffrey Lonmouth to death. In his aggression, he caves in the entire left side of Joffrey's face and then leaves the ceremony, shocking everyone around him. He then walks out to the Godswood and prepares to take his own life. He believes his honor is now beyond repair and he has nothing to live for, so he takes off his white cloak and longsword. However, just before he can stab himself with his dagger, Queen Alicent Targaryen calls out. What happens between them is not shown. Around 10 years later, Ser Criston Cole is shown to be Queen Alicent's biggest ally, presumably because she had saved him from death. He works as master-at-arms for Rhaenyra and Alicent's sons. His demeanor has significantly changed, as he is seen calling Princess Rhaenyra some pretty colorful words. He also favors Alicent's sons and allows Aegon II to roughhouse Jacaerys Velaryon, Rhaenyra's oldest child. When Harwin Strong tries to intervene, Criston alleges that Rhaenyra's children are bastards, and this provokes Harwin Strong, who begins to beat up Cole. This incident leads to Strong leaving King's Landing. When Rhaenyra and Alicent's children got into a fight, Jacaerys Velaryon ends up attacking Aemon Targaryen, who loses an eye. The Kingsguard, including Criston, separate the kids. When everyone is summoned by King Viserys over the incident, the members of the Kingsguard are heavily berated by him for failing to contain the incident. Criston tries to shift the blame to Rhaenyra's children, but is silenced by the king. He is later ordered by Alicent to take one of Luke's eyes as revenge. When he doesn't indulge, the angry queen herself marches ahead, while Daemon holds back Criston. It's during this legendary scene that Rhaenyra tells Alicent that people will now see her for what she really is. Following this, a few years later, Aemon Targaryen becomes an excellent warrior, having been tutored by the Kingmaker himself. When the prince defeats Cole in a sparring match, the latter says that it's only a matter of time before Aemon starts winning tournaments. After the death of the elderly King Viserys, Criston attends the meeting of the small council and kills Lyman Beesbury when he protests against having Aegon II made king. Sir Harold asks him to drop his sword and cloak, but he refuses since he would not tolerate insults to the queen. Later, Sir Harold resigns his position when he's asked to murder Rhaenyra at Dragonstone. Aemond and Criston are tasked by Alicent to find Aegon, who has grown up to be quite the brat with very few kingly qualities. Anyway, since he's the oldest son of King Viserys, he's to be crowned king over Rhaenyra. Before this happens, Alicent promotes Criston Cole to the Lord Commander of the Kings. The Kingmaker crowns Aegon II in the Dragon Pit with Aegon the Conqueror's crown and hails him as the true heir to the Iron Throne. They're interrupted when Rhaenys Targaryen bursts through the doors on her dragon Melis, but in a very anticlimactic scene, the older Targaryen woman leaves them after a terrifying roar from Melis, presumably to inform her daughter-in-law Rhaenyra of the event. Master Manipulator, the lover of Alicent. In Season 2 of House of the Dragon, Ser Criston Cole remains the president of the I Hate Rhaenyra fan club as he now actively disproves her claim to the Iron Throne. In an even more bizarre turn of events, he's revealed to be Queen Alicent Hightower's lover. All in all, the man managed to sleep his way into the beds of 2 queens, which is a considerably commendable feat for a knight who was so guilt-ridden out of breaking his Kingsguard vows that he wanted to take his own life. It can be assumed that he began to develop a connection with Alicent when he confessed to her about his night with Rhaenyra all those years back, and when she had subsequently stopped him from committing suicide. He had since joined the Green faction and had presumably been warming Alicent's bed for well over a decade, and who knows, maybe he had also been manipulating her out of his hatred for Rhaenyra. Cole is also seen encouraging the already bad tendencies of Alicent's children, although they probably don't know of his affair with their mother. In one scene, he's talking with Aemon Targaryen, encouraging the already vengeful prince's desire to attack Rhaenyra directly instead of listening to Otto Hightower's advice on being diplomatic about the war. The most shocking oversight of Criston Cole's duties happens when he is seen bedding Alicent while Aegon II's heir, Jaehaerys, is slaughtered by blood and cheese. As Queen Helaena walks into Alicent's chambers, holding her daughter Jaehaera and visibly traumatized having witnessed her son die, Criston is seen hurriedly trying to put his clothes back. Considering that as the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Criston's actual duty is to protect the royal family, this is a heinous offense that somehow doesn't even shake the same man who was once so obsessed with honor and duty that he almost killed himself. In fact, when Aegon II rightfully demands to know where he was the night his son was killed, Criston replies that he was in bed without batting an eye. Even though the Kingmaker later tells Alicent he cannot forgive himself for neglecting his duties, he's again seen spending the night, which makes his apology pretty cold and dismissive. Whether it's out of guilt or whether he just wants to make ripples, Criston Cole takes it upon himself to deliver a fatal blow to Rhaenyra as revenge for having the king's heir killed. Without even consulting the Hand, Otto Hightower, or the Queen, who he is obviously on very good terms with, he tasks Ser R.R. Cargyle with infiltrating Dragonstone to kill the fake queen. He's seen talking big about duty and responsibility when he asks the knight where he was during the child's death, when he himself could have prevented it if he had not slept with the queen. Of course, to fans, it seems like he's just trying to take the focus off of him. He wasn't around to protect the queen and the heir, and he's trying to right a wrong. However, as we see, his plan to kill Rhaenyra fails, and now the contender to the throne at Dragonstone believes Alicent sent an assassin after her. Otto Hightower comes to know of this and intensely berates both Criston Cole for coming up with the idea and Aegon II for entertaining. Aegon, being the ever-foolish king, believes that he needs a Hand of Steel and dismisses his grandfather as Hand of the King. And guess who he gives the position to? You got it. Ser Criston Cole somehow managed to be the reason why Aegon's heir died, and yet he receives a promotion out. Talk about failing up. It remains to be seen just how he'll advise Aegon, but we can all guess that this duo is going to be making a lot of hasty and ill-advised decisions in the episodes to come. It will also be interesting to show how Cole further manages to manipulate Alicent while handling his duties as Hand to Aegon II. The fall of Criston Cole's legacy. This is where the spoilers begin, so just mentioning that in case you need to pause. In the book, Aegon II sustains serious head injuries during the war, which leads to his brother Aemon becoming protector of the realm, while Criston Cole remains Hand. Daemon Targaryen had captured Harrenhal on behalf of his wife, Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen, and Aemon and Criston wanted to win the castle back. Criston and Aemon departed King's Landing with Vhagar and about 4,000 men. To their surprise, they found Harrenhal to be empty with no sign of Daemon or his men. While Aemon considered it a significant victory at first, he was later enraged to learn that the real reason Daemon had left Harrenhal was to accompany Rhaenyra to capture King's Landing. Meanwhile, the Greens were losing battles constantly, so Criston asked Aemon to join forces with Lord Ormond Hightower and Prince Daeron Targaryen, but Aemon instead decided to burn the Riverlands with Vhagar's dragon flame. Ser Criston Cole then kept traveling to the south with his men, but the Black faction used battle tactics that made it pretty difficult for the Green armies to gather supplies. They destroyed villages and contaminated the water sources, making sure there would be virtually no food or fresh water for the Green armies. And then there were rivermen, such as Benjicott Blackwood and Black Trombo, who kept intercepting Criston's army and killing the men. When the remaining men were traveling from God's Eye to Blackwater Rush, they were ambushed by a huge army of Blacks, led by formidable men such as Sir Garibald Grey, Sir Roderick Dustin, and Sir Pate of Longleaf. The once proud Kingmaker offered to surrender himself if they would spare the lives of his men, but this plea fell on deaf ears. Criston then challenged the 3 knights, but was refused again and was finally killed by 3 arrows. His remaining men were also killed, and his head was brought back on a spear to the First Battle of Tumbleton. And that's pretty much it. Despite being an undoubtedly valiant warrior and a gifted strategist, Ser Criston Cole died in a pretty humiliating and anticlimactic way during the war. Keep in mind, this was the same man who defeated Daemon Targaryen in a duel and had made Aemon Targaryen one of the fiercest warriors in the realm. You would think that he would die a hero's death, but his swan song was nothing as such. While he's still remembered as one of the best warriors in the history of Westeros, Ser Criston Cole is certainly a hard-to-like character. In fact, there's very little clarity about his motives for supporting Aegon II during the Targaryen Civil War. It's believed by some that he has always had his eye on the position of Hand of the King and wanted a more controllable ruler, which Aegon II was, far more so than Rhaenyra Targaryen, who was headstrong and thus couldn't be controlled as easily. Of course, there's also the theory that Rhaenyra's refusal of his marriage proposal made him into a bitter little man who did everything out of spite. Some also believe that he simply honored Andal traditions of giving sons precedence over daughters, and that he didn't want Rhaenyra's children to inherit the throne, as he considered them bastards. Either way, while he certainly was a valiant warrior, he also embodied quite a few nasty traits.
You will go to Dragonstone and strike down Rhaenyra in her own halls.
Marvelous verdict! But that's all we got for you today. Ser Criston Cole is truly becoming one of the most hated people in House of the Dragon, and it remains to be seen how the showrunners intend his character to pan out even more. Maybe we'll finally get a reason why he snaked his way into Queen Alicent Hightower's bed, or we might even witness them having a falling out because of his incessant support of Aegon II's whims now that he's become Hand of the King. George R.R. Martin has always created complex characters, but maybe the despise for Criston Cole feels personal because he is neither a deeply disturbed person nor a maniac, but rather just someone who acts out of spite because he can't handle rejection. Or maybe he's just someone who wants more of the stage in the story and doesn't want to be seen as a supporting character. Or maybe he's just a shitty dude. Fans are excited to see what new episodes have to offer and to see Ser Criston Cole, Hand of the King, in action. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.